Soundtrack to Ancient Aliens by Dennis McCarthy. Holy shit, Dennis McCarthy did that? What the fuck? Autographed. Order. Of course. Fuck, I'll take that. All right. Woo, hey, welcome to the Wednesday Q&A for Sovereign Tech patrons only. This is uniquely or especially different, or it's different than the one that than the important messages segment that exists in every Sovereign Tech Prime episode. Of course, usually I can only get to one question there, but if you have more questions, and there's always more questions, and please keep them coming, because the bank of questions for the Sovereign Tech Wednesday Q&As is a little low, so keep them coming. But we've got some good ones to get into this week. Anyway, something that comes up often. I think we cracked a couple jokes about in the last couple episodes of whatever Sovereign Tech was being done at the time, Prime or whatever it was, about Ancient Aliens. Okay, I say this a million times. I'll say it again. Yes, I watch the show Ancient Aliens. I watch it, dare I say, I hate the use of this term, but dare I say, religiously. I watch that show. And I think it's nothing less than a miracle and remarkable that it's in its 13th season. How the fuck is that possible? And that, as I just mentioned at the beginning there, La La Land Records actually released a soundtrack. I've been wanting that soundtrack for 13 fucking years. And now it's finally come out. Yeah, I'll take that. And get an autographed edition by Dennis McCarthy, which, for people that don't know, Dennis McCarthy is pretty much the guy that did all of the music. I mean, Jay Chataway was in on it and a few others for The Next Generation, for Star Trek The Next Generation. That explains why that's such beautiful atmospheric music, because certainly Star Trek has its share of that. But anyway, just because I watch the show doesn't mean I believe any of it. Okay? And most of it I don't believe, or the stuff I do believe I already knew long ago. I don't, and if you want to ask me more about this, you can. I've talked about it so many times though, but I'm more than happy to talk about it more. I do not believe that aliens have ever been to Earth. I don't think that that complex, sapient alien life, like something out of, I don't know, pick your Hollywood movie, that it exists much of anywhere in the universe. Okay, I think humanity, creatures with the intelligence of humanity are exceptionally rare in the entirety of the universe. Not just in the galaxy or the solar system or something like that. I mean, in the entirety of the universe, I think that it is very, very, very fucking rare. So deal with it, okay? And if you want to learn more, well, you can read a book called Rare Earth. Was that by Peter Woodward? In fact, if you need help with that, maybe, did I release that yet on books.zog.ninja? Maybe I didn't, but it's a hell of a book. Anyway. Yeah, so like, he watches Ancient Aliens, what the fuck, he believes in this? No, I don't. Sorry. You don't get to put this peg this square in that round hole, or even try, because I'm square and that's round. And well, anyway, all right, we've got questions to get into, but that was cool. What a nice surprise to see that's getting sold. Yeah. I don't believe in aliens. I mean, I believe in I don't believe. I think that some of the historical mysteries that they bring up on that show are very interesting and very valid and worth exploration. But I'm totally open to that humans did it, and perhaps advanced humans from a long time ago. How about that? Oh, now you get to label me crazy again. Well, you'll see in a couple weeks, actually. I plan on talking quite a bit about that whole thing, because even though I've been talking about it for years, now suddenly academia seems to be taking the concept a little more seriously, that perhaps there could have been an advanced industrial human civilization thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands of years ago. So anyway, but let's... While we're talking about advanced civilizations, or maybe not so advanced, because I don't think you could talk about Windows 10 and say advanced civilization. So I got a ton of, and this is both into the Prime show and into the Wednesday Q&A. I don't know this week's Prime show. I mean, obviously you're going to get one. You get one every fucking week. In fact, I did get somebody, I don't know if I'm going to get to this question. Some people I got a question about podcasting by the patrons. We'll see if I get to that. But anyway, I got a ton of questions of people asking me two things. One, did you install the Windows 10 April update, which is the newest version of Windows 10, version 18.03? And then also, have you tried the new version of Ubuntu, which is I think this is just fortuitousness, because Ubuntu's numbering scheme has been around forever, and you more or less know what it is. But I think it's hilarious that when the new version of Windows 10 is 18.03 and the new version of Ubuntu is 18.04. I mean, it just happens. And would that argue that Ubuntu is the more advanced because it has the higher number? I would say yes. But also, my answer to both questions is yes. I have messed with Ubuntu 18.04 LTS, which is their long-term support version, which is good for, like 5-10 years. They support the LTS versions forever. So, I mean, we're rocking this until, 2022, something like that. Yeah, or you can rock it until then and get updates. And then also I did install pretty much the day that it came out, which it finally came out on Monday, April 30th. I mean, they just had it come out in April. Just barely got it out. The Windows 10 April update, which if it came out May 1st, that would have been kind of strange, right? So anyway, yes, I've messed with both of those, and I got tons of questions of people asking me about that and what I think about them. So I'm not going to read all of those questions. I am just going to give you a little bit of a breakdown of my past few days with both operating systems. And we can start off talking about Windows 10 because maybe there's the least amount to say when it comes with the Windows 10 April update. I may get to do a fuller review of the Windows 10 April update on Sovereign Tech, but that's the thing. There's not a whole lot to say. Like, I feel like this is a very incremental update overall. And we already talked about the fact the only reason it was delayed was because it was hashing out blue screens of death, apparently. In fact, I think their cumulative update to 1709 or whatever. No. Yeah. 1709, whatever it was, the last version, the fall creators update. I guess that must have been 1709. That was doling out blue screens of death, because I got tons of people telling me about that they got blue screens of death, and the blue screen of death that I got ended up killing my fucking computer, or ended up killing my ZenBook anyway. I mean, I have multiple computers, but that was because that was my daily driver, really, and I had stuff on there, some of which is pretty irreplaceable. In fact, I sent off the hard drive to Drive Savers. I ended up buying another hard drive to put into it, and I ended up installing Ubuntu on there because fuck Microsoft. I mean, I'm on that. It's funny. Oh boy. So Sovereign Tech's we've been going 6 years, and we'll be hitting year 7 in December. But anyway, we've been going 6 years. And, in the early years of the show, I was very fuck Microsoft. Like that was definitely my attitude. I was also kind of pro Google. But, we all learn better on things. But for a little while, and I've already talked about this endless times now, where, Microsoft, I felt, has gone through some stages. The third stage of Microsoft, I thought was actually, it was a company I could almost root for. Almost. And, we learned better than to do that, didn't we? So it's back to fuck Microsoft, and it's going to stay that way from now on, because really Microsoft, the only thing that differentiates Microsoft really is Windows, and they are, in my opinion, effectively abandoning Windows. And maybe the Windows 10 April update is proving that point. But from now on, I mean, I need to keep at least one Windows machine around, okay, for varying reasons, gaming, among other things, okay, for certain software. But, otherwise, yeah, I'll just install Ubuntu or OpenBSD or whatever I'm feeling, on my other computers. So anyway, Windows 10 April update. Not a whole lot to say. When you update, and the update takes about an hour depending upon your computer, the easiest way to do it is you just go to the upgrade assistant, because otherwise it'll take like a month before you can see whether or not your computer or device or whatever can get the update. But you can update it right away. I have not run into any blue screens of death. I have not run into any issues. I installed it onto my Dell 7550. And it's running butter smooth, quite frankly. I mean, it really is. I'll give it that. Like it's running very well. I mean, Windows 10 was actually running pretty well up until what seemed to be that last cumulative update, and then there was the cumulative update after that for version 1709 for the Fall Creators Update that seemed to come out pretty fast. And I think they knew that, oh shit, this is fucking up some computers. And I'm telling you, I blame that for my fucking hard drive crash. Anyway, so the Windows, the April update is running fine. There's not so much. So they've been switching over to a new design language. Okay. A new, like, it's not exactly a new GUI, but a new design language called Fluent Design. And you kind of see that, and really Fluent Design just looks like a mixture between Metro, which is what Windows 8, of course they can't call it Metro, but which is anymore because of some IP bullshit. But what Windows 8 and Windows 10 originally were running with, it's kind of a mixture between Metro and Aero. Like Aero used to be the glass look that Windows 7 would have. It seems like Fluent Design is kind of like going in that direction, and it's meant to work better with the C shell that, as in the letter C and then shell, that Microsoft has been messing with. But anyway, they have designs and plans, and all this stuff is taking forever to get implemented, but you see little hints of it as you go along. There's that. There's the kind of the three major things I think that are different is that there's that new. So there's two things. I think they call it Focus View, and then there's Focus Assistant, and these are two different things. Focus View replaced. It's right next to on your taskbar. It's right next to Cortana. If you have Cortana like in your taskbar, I mean, you kind of have to have it now. Ever since the anniversary update, I think. But anyway. Focus View just brings up like all your windows that you have open. I don't find this kind of thing, and they used to have like Tab View and others. They used to give it different names and used to do different things. And like on Vista, you used to be able to flip through it and stuff. I find this kind of thing completely useless. Like first off, if you have that much shit open and you're working like that, I just don't get it. I mean, and most screens aren't big enough to where you could have like the one advantage I could see to this is that if you were kind of looking at something for spelling or something like that, and you didn't want to have to keep going back and forth between, say, a web browser where you're looking at a dictionary and your text, like it could be handy for that. But most screens, especially laptop screens, you're not going to be able to read both of those things at the same time. I don't know. It just seems like kind of a dumbass. Well, not dumbass, but it to me, it's a pointless feature. It's supposed to help people move, to like task switching and everything. It just doesn't do anything for me, so I don't care. It looks pretty, it's snappy, but that's all I can say about it. Focus Assistant, on the other hand, is this much more itemized and granular version of, what did they used to call it, like quiet mode? Because you get notifications that come out of the action bar on the right-hand side of Windows 10. Now, Focus Assistant allows you to sort of choose which things you actually want to get notifications from, like which apps you want to get notifications from. Like you can install the Instagram app, right, on Windows 10 on the desktop, and you could get notifications for that. And you can get notifications for when a torrent is finished downloading, like from Torx, if you're using Torx Pro. Or you could get notifications from Twitter, which, by the way, if you have the April update now, you also have the new progressive web app version of the Twitter app, which I've messed with. It's fine. It doesn't have dark mode, which annoys the fuck out of me, so I'll just keep using the website. But so you could choose with Focus Assistant, you can choose which ones you want to allow to show up, like which ones can notify you and which ones do you want to keep to where they just stay in the action bar and they don't interrupt you in the middle of what the fuck you're doing. I just leave quiet hours on all the time, I mean, I really do. Like if I need notifications what I'll do is I have a little stand that was actually bought for me by a Sovereign Tech listener. Thank you. Off of my Amazon wish list, wishlist.zog.ninja, which I haven't updated that in a little bit. I need to. But anyway, because there are a couple things that I want. I actually, real quick, I ordered the Oculus Go just because, as a tech journalist, I don't like giving Facebook money. Okay, I do more or less trust Oculus because Carmack's still there. Okay, but I don't like giving Facebook money. But this is, the reviews were hot, and everybody's saying this is going to be the entry point for so many people into VR, and I want to see what the hell they're entering into. And so, because it's a standalone thing, okay, fine. So I did get an Oculus Go, and I will be reviewing that in future episodes. Anyway, so with Focus Assistant, where was I? Yeah, so you can choose what comes up. I leave mine on quiet hours all the time. And what I do is like I said, I have a stand where I put my phone, and I will just check, my phone every once in a while to see if there's like a notification there. And I more or less, that's what I really use my phone for now. I try not to walk around with my phone at all. I will have Bluetooth headphones on. That's a different story. But I try not to, so a couple things. Okay. This is a little bit of a side tangent. The more interesting thing to talk about here, we'll get into one more Windows 10 feature, and then we'll talk about what they actually got rid of in the April update, which is a more comprehensive and interesting list. But so one of the reasons that I bought a ZenBook 3, which is the computer that died on me a couple weeks ago when I was in Boston, or last week, whatever. One of the reasons I bought that was I was like, Windows 10, like because of UWP apps and everything and this melding of mobile and desktop, you could kind of get away with having a laptop and not having to carry around a phone so much, and yet still use a lot of the features that are usually exclusively mobile, but because of the unique Windows 10 platform, you're able to use them there. And so that was kind of my thinking behind that. And it's such a lightweight computer, I mean, it's barely 2 pounds, that you don't, you can carry it around easily, and it's featherweight, and you don't even really notice that you're even having it around and everything. So, but one thing that I've come to realize, so when that crashed, my other computers, my other laptops and everything, generally they either are very specific purpose and it's not something that I would use for my usual day-to-day work, or like it's a laptop that maybe it's an older laptop that I keep around and that I usually keep, like it has a bunch of devices connected to it, and I'm more or less using it like a desktop. Like it effectively is a desktop. It's always plugged in, blah, blah, blah. Kind of like my Dell. So a funny thing happened, like that I noticed throughout the week, is that I've really enjoyed, and I've mentioned this before about how, like, when you go to sit down at a desktop, you just end up taking things way more seriously. I swear with the laptop, because the freedom that it provides, you're a lot more flippant with what you're doing on it. And I've actually really liked the fact that there has been, for me, this separation of where my what I'll effectively, I mean, it's a laptop, but I'll call it my desktop, where my desktop is. And that it's not like I don't have this pervasive screen with me everywhere I go around the house, or that if I'm going somewhere for, I don't know, going on wherever the fuck I'm going. Okay. If I'm traveling, I'm not carrying around, like I'm thinking twice about, do I want to pack up the laptop and everything? Cause it's kind of bulky and what the fuck, and you don't want to do it. And I've already been training myself pretty well to not give a shit about my phone, right? Like to either, if I'm going to use the phone, it's really just to play audiobooks or podcasts, and it's not necessary. It's not really for communicating or anything. And I'll treat it as such as, it's just what connects to Bluetooth in the car and, gives me the business, or that, that powers the headphones. I mean, I would be just as happy. And I know that this kind of, this was becoming a thing for a little while. Of course, they were ridiculously huge and looked totally stupid, but, where you had headphones that had built-in MP3 players and everything, like I'd be totally game for that. But all I want it to do, I don't want it to send data to anybody. It doesn't even really need a data connection. I just want it to be able to, play some music and audiobooks and everything, whatever. So that's why it can't just be a smartphone. or it's not why, or that's where it also differentiates it from being, like where I think Apple is going with their AirPods, where eventually they're going to get rid of the phone and they just want you to have AirPods and you talk to Siri. I don't want that. I just don't need a smartphone to appreciate, the content that I want to consume. I mean, I do now, but I can imagine devices where it wouldn't be necessary. That's my point. So I already have my, phone in check. That's not really a problem. And when certain people are over and around, like the phone goes completely away. I don't touch it. Fuck it. I don't care because, the people that I want to talk to are here. So, well, I mean, that's not entirely true, but you get my point. So, but it's been really nice to like have a computer just be in a specific spot and that I'm not thinking about using a computer at all times. And this takes a little bit of retraining because like I'm very used to when I'm just walking around, the house and maybe just having some coffee or something. And I think of something to look up and what I would normally do is, my laptop's right there. I'll just look it up, blah, blah, blah. But instead, like it steps away from me and it allows me to kind of stick in the moment. I know that's sort of a cliche thing to say today. Be mindful, be in the moment, blah, blah, blah. I mean, whatever. I've been talking about that on Sovereign Tech long before that became a goddamn thing. But regardless, it's zero tasking. Remember when I used to talk about that? I could talk about that again if people want to ask about it. Regardless, yeah, there's a good feeling in putting this shit in its place. There really is. So anyway, that was my point on that. All right, let's get back to talking about Windows 10, the April update. So the April update, you have the removed list. Well, okay, the last feature, they did a ton to Microsoft Edge. Okay, like they really, really added in a lot to Microsoft Edge. Now, of course, that makes sense because Microsoft Edge is such an important platform now, because if like the UWP apps, if the Windows Store and most of the software within it is really just going to be progressive web apps, which means that they effectively run in a web browser's container and they just act like native apps, that's all being done in Microsoft Edge. So sure, it's fucking important to make sure that Microsoft Edge works really, really well. So I mean, they're still banking hard on that, and Microsoft knows that, look, in today's world, I'm not saying this is good, I'm not saying that it's right, but it's a fact that the web browser is the single most important piece of software on any computer today. And it's the single most used. It's where most people do their actual computing. Most people. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that that's how it is. And so, Microsoft, as bad as Edge is, they can't give up on it. Like they just can't. Because then you lose. You're completely throwing in the towel if you jump out of the browser wars. But anyway, like here's an example of something that they put in. They put in the ability to completely turn off Microsoft Edge's ability to remember your passwords. It's 2018. Edge is what, 2 years old? That feature's just getting put in, and who knows how long Edge was getting developed beforehand, and that feature's just getting put in? What the fuck? I mean, I gave Edge a shot. I really did. And people know. I talked about it. And I said, yeah, it's like 90% there. But then, like, you find out about all these little features that you realize it didn't have, and you go, what in the goddamn hell? What were they thinking? You know what I mean? So anyway, there you go. Those are kind of the three main things that were part of it. Now, things that they removed, of course, they removed Groove Music Pass. That more or less already happened. There's different parts of the People app, which is supposed to be a big deal, where you could have your contacts and interact with them at the OS level. That they've messed with that a little bit, where they've removed features from that. Home Group is gone, which that's a holdover from. Was that like Vista when that first came in, or at least Windows 7, where you had all of these different computers and they would, now they got rid of Home Group because pretty much everybody just connects everything through their smartphone, or, that their smartphone is, for a lot of people, is their main device. And so like most people don't have multiple computers running around the house. And so they got rid of, I get it, why they got rid of Home Group. They got rid of, XPS Viewer. I don't know why they got rid of that. PDFs are still a thing. Well, actually, no. I know why they got rid of XPS Viewer. It's because that PDF and EPUB reading and all of that has all been transferred to, or that's all baked into Microsoft Edge now. And so I imagine they're just having you get the PDFs through through Microsoft Edge. But, XPS Viewer has been around for a good long while, and that's finally gone. So they have been, they have gotten rid of stuff. There's other things a lot of other features that they're just not going to develop anymore, but they put it, but that were there. I mean, this is kind of hollowing out Windows in to a degree. I'm curious what the removal list will be next time, and the removal lists were even longer for previous versions of Windows 10. But it's a trend that continues with the April update. So there's no real functionality difference in my opinion, other than the focus assist is weird and it's very confusing. Like I personally just like saying no quiet hours and everything just went quiet, because really there is a time you just don't want the distractions, and you still get the little field where you click on to open up the action bar on the task, or the action bar on the taskbar will fill in white when there's a notification anyway. So it's not like you don't know when you get a notification. You can just check it anyway. So I don't know what exactly. I don't necessarily see the advantage to focus view, or focus assist, but whatever. But it's hilarious that they're calling it focus assist. They're almost admitting, I mean, that's really Microsoft admitting that, yeah, notifications are a problem for your brain. And they are. They absolutely are. Hilarious. So anyway, let's move on from that. Let's talk a little bit about Ubuntu 18.04. This is definitely the more interesting and more dramatic shift of the two operating systems. So Ubuntu 18.04 this was the big deal where they finally got rid of their Unity GUI, and they have now they're going back to GNOME, which, hey, great. I mean, their version of GNOME Shell looks a lot like Unity, where it has the bar on the favorites bar on the left hand side. It doesn't look that much different. They've just finally said, okay, well, we're done with Unity, which is a good thing, because there's a lot of features with GNOME, or when you're using GNOME as your GUI that you can take advantage of that aren't there with Unity, or that would have to be bastardized, really with Unity. Like you have GNOME extensions that can all be put in the bar on the top part of Ubuntu 18.04. When I installed it, so the install process, probably the quickest, and it's not too different from the past 20 versions, but it worked. I mean, one of the nice things, there's actually an option when you're doing a clean install of 18.04 to do there's like normal install, and then there's minimal install. Minimal install will keep like all the Office software and a lot of other stuff from actually getting installed. I thought that was pretty nice. It would more or less give you the file manager, a web browser, which, because again, that's the most important piece of software on there. It'd give you all of that, and that's it. I thought that was nice that option was there. But otherwise, there weren't any real dramatic differences whatsoever. A lot less marketing during the install process, but then, like, they used to tell you, oh, you can do this with Ubuntu, you can do this with Ubuntu, blah, 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 blah. You didn't really get a lot of that, but then the install process, like I said, was very, very fast. And I thought that was kind of slick. So I like the minimal install option. Of course, now it's up to Linux kernel 4.15, which is more or less the latest. You get in the Ubuntu store, the App Store in Ubuntu, now has direct access and kind of prioritizes Snap apps. Now, Snap apps are wonderful. Snap apps work across all the Linux distros and allows developers of apps, of software, to create like one file that can work across all different, like a bunch of different distros. It's very handy. We've talked about them on Sovereign Tech Prime episodes anytime that any of that has come out. And I'm glad that they're built right into the App Store on Ubuntu. It works very, very well. I had my whole software loadout installed far faster than I would on a Windows desktop. That's saying something. Like, after the install was faster than Windows, I think it was easier. Like, I think it's actually easier to do like an actual install. There's no real complex language. It explains everything with little bubble pop-ups if you really don't know what's going on. I was really, really impressed by 1804, by Ubuntu's install in 1804. And then once you're ready to start rocking some software, the App Store works beautifully, and it's significantly easier than actually having to go to websites, downloading the software independently. I think it's prettier and actually works more or less better than the Windows Store itself. I mean, I was just impressed across the board with how quickly I set up my entire laptop with my entire workflow using, going fresh with Ubuntu 1804. So that was really slick. There's actually, like, they put a to-do app now in Ubuntu like that. That was kind of cool. I've messed with that a bit, even though I think if you're a Linux user and you need like note taking, most people probably use Simple Note from Automatic, right? The guys that develop WordPress as well. LibreOffice 6.1 comes in automatically. And oh boy, what else was in there? So yeah, they let you, we talked about this on a previous Q&A where it's optional to set up Wayland, and you can use that now, but it's optional. It's something you have to opt into, but that's a whole other, that's getting a little more technical on things. So the one thing it didn't do, and like the same day that 1804 came out, GIMP, the version 2.10, I think that's it, right? GIMP 2.10 finally came out, and it's like, oh shit, because for like 6 years we've been on version 2.8. It's been forever since we've gotten a new version of GIMP, of GIMP, and here it is, version 2.10, and it's beautiful. It's really nice. It opens up automatically with a dark theme, and the other nice thing. So I'm a fan of GIMP. I know people that are like really great with Photoshop hate GIMP, and I totally understand why. I'm not taking anything away from you on that or saying anything negative about that. But I like GIMP fine, and because I'm very basic in what I do as far as picture, photography work and picture editing and all that. And GIMP just does what I need it to. But one of the nice things that I would do with every version of GIMP that I'd get, and whenever I'd install it, is I'd set it for one window mode, because normally GIMP has like 3 different, like windows that it works within. Okay. And like there's, the layers, and then there's the toolbar, and then there's like the actual picture area and everything. And they're all separate, and you can move them around or whatever. But GIMP for a while has had a one window mode where everything can just be in one window, like any other, like most apps work, or most software works. And version 2.10 now puts that on by default, and it puts in a dark theme by default. And there's a bunch of other features too. It's really, really nice. I was actually messing with that earlier today, and I loved it. So you definitely, if you're doing a new Ubuntu install, when you're going to install GIMP, make sure you do that. Now, here's the thing, is that the easiest way to get the latest version of GIMP, because in the Ubuntu App Store, they're still only letting you download version 2.8. But if you install Flatpak, which is newer, it's not entirely new, but really it's going to be the future of the way that like apps, because of Snap apps and things like this, this is going to be kind of a universal store that Linux can use, universal app repository effectively. And so you want to get Flatpak and all the repositories and everything installed, and then you can get GIMP on there easily. And man, is it nice. I mean, it's really, I really, really like that. But there's a few other features that were pretty nice in Ubuntu 1804. And once you install a couple apps like Tweaks and some others, you can really make Ubuntu work the way that you want it. And when I messed with, because some of the stuff I hadn't messed with in a little bit, like Linux, the Skype Snap app for Linux worked stunningly. Slack also worked great. Yes, I ended up having to use those for certain clients. So I put them on. Steam has a Snap app, installed that, and boom. And all the software a lot of the software that I use on that, not games but actual software, a lot of them have Linux packages now, and they worked beautifully right out of the gate. So I am very, very impressed with Ubuntu overall now. And 1804 was, if this is a sign of where they're going in the future and where they're rededicating towards the desktop, granted, it looks like they're pointing at cloud a bit, but if they're, reconcentrating on desktop and not trying to do all these other wild things, some of which I was supportive of, others not so much. Hey, great. I almost used the stupid phrase, let's make Ubuntu great again, right? Well, they're on the right track. I mean, going back to GNOME Shell is a nice start, along with everything else that they put into this. So very impressed. If you're looking to get away from Windows 10, yeah, I think Ubuntu 1804 is a great place to start because it was very, very easy to get going and to do a lot of the more basic stuff. Really, really simple to get up and running. There's some things where I went to the terminal to do it just because I'm used to that and it's easy for me, but I get that not everybody, knows terminal commands. So, when I was messing with it, I was like, yeah, you really wouldn't need to use the terminal to do this. And so, yeah, I think we're about, everybody says every year is the year of Linux. Well, we're getting a lot closer, I think, with 1804. I was very, very impressed. So anyway, there you go. There's some thoughts on the Windows 10 April update and on Ubuntu 1804, which is now going to be my daily driving OS, which I will, because, it has Audacity, so I can record the podcast on there fine. There's not much of anything I can think of that I can't really do on it. Even game development, I can do that on Ubuntu. I mean, it's... Other than gaming, and there's a couple other things, but in Photoshop, I know, okay, you don't have to tell me, I totally empathize with people that use Photoshop. But other than gaming, it's to the point, it really is to the point now where there's nothing you kind of can't do on Linux. Well, then there's Blu-rays, but that's another story. So it depends what you use your computer for, I suppose. Okay, let's get into some of these other questions here quick and see what we can knock out. There's an interesting last one. I'm going to save that. Let's do that. So this is kind of a longer question. I'll read it, and there's some very kind words in it, so I'm happy to read it here. Dear Stallion, new patron here, and I love all of the Patreon content and the Prime content, of course. You have such an amazing, diverse cast of co-hosts. I even listened to the Star Wars update, and Stephanie and Ellen are off the charts. As a female listener myself, I think they're both incredible role models, and I really look up to them. I especially love the Relationship Rhombus show and feel that's more of what Sex and Science Hour should be, but I think I've heard you say you don't control that show, and I'll listen to anything Stephanie does anyways. All right, let me stop for a second. So, yeah, Star Wars update. Glad you're enjoying that. I know there's a lot of people, or I know there's patrons who... They don't even like Star Wars, but they listen to it anyway. They just enjoy Robin and I going back and forth. And, of course, it's one of my favorite times of the month, to do that with him because, anyway, it's just a great time. I will pass on the message to Stephanie and Ellen. I'm sure they will be very honored to hear that you consider them role models. I consider them role models. I think they're just two of the most, if not the most amazing people on the planet today. I'm just in awe of them. So I completely understand where you're coming from. And in my own opinion, you could do no better. Most people say, well, you could do worse. No, you could do no better than having them as your role models, in my opinion. So bravo to you. Sex and Science Hour. So in the Relationship Rhombus show, and feel that's more of what Sex and Science Hour should be. And that I don't control Sex and Science Hour. I don't. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I don't control Sex and Science Hour. I don't control when it gets recorded. I don't control when it comes out. I don't control any of that. That is Stephanie's show. And if you are wanting more Sex and Science Hour and you're wanting this and that, you talk to her. I'll tell you, yes, the show is still going. And I think this week we're going to be recording a new episode. But no, I have zero, I don't even really have control over the stories, okay, that get talked about on that. So anything that related, you want to talk to Stephanie about. So let's see, but she says, but I think I've heard you say you don't control that show, and I'll listen to anything Stephanie does anyways. Yeah, as do I. I listen to everything Stephanie does. But I was wondering, after listening to a recent Relationship Rhombus show, there was a question about how much sex a week you and Stephanie like to have, and you both kind of dodged the directness of the answer. So I was wondering if on a regular Q&A, if you'd answer the question directly, just how much sex is the optimal amount for the man of tomorrow? Thanks, and keep up the incredible content with those incredible women. Thank you so much. All of that's very kind words. Thank you so much. I'm really, I'm always really honored. And I hear from a lot of people on this sort of thing, but I'm always so honored when I hear that. Thank you. So okay, yeah, I'll answer it directly. I know what you're talking about. I remember, and yeah, Stephanie didn't want to answer it, and she didn't think it was anybody's business, and I'm not going to answer for her. And I mean, I'll just tell you my own tastes, what I go for. I'm fine with answering this. And I mean, okay. So I am definitely, maybe the best answer to give is I am an at least once a day kind of guy. Okay. At least, key term, at least once a day. I am perfectly happy. And, there's been times where we were having conversations with certain people and we talk about this and we would, or I would say this, and sometimes you get raised eyebrows about it. And like, look, if I was doing it 3-4 times a day, sure, okay, I'm down with that. And granted, like, sex doesn't have to be, me coming 3-4 times a day, right? Like, it can be, sex can be, well, I mean, shit, especially like if I don't have to come, hell, I'll do it 10 times a day. Like I'm not kidding. Like, if it's just me, going down on someone, like 2-3 times a day or something like that, and then I'm coming maybe 2 or 3 of those myself. Hey, great. Like, those don't have to be the same instances, right? If you don't want or need them to be. Like I know how this sounds, but really, I'm happy rocking it as often as possible. I mean, someone can cut this part out and take it as a clip. I would eat pussy all day. I am not kidding. Like, really, I love it. I love doing that. It is. And to see the look on a woman's face when you're doing that, and the sounds, man, nothing else like it in the world. There's just there's no experience like that whatsoever. Yeah, I would do that all the time. So if you're asking more like how many times do I want to come, like, orgasm throughout, I mean, yeah, like I say, I like at least once a day. That's my preference, but it can be significantly more. And I get it. Not everybody has that same kind of drive. Sexuality, much like a million other things, people have different tolerances, different abilities, different degrees of, how much sex they want in their life and everything. And I am definitely on, if there's a spectrum, with the left side being asexuality and the right side being hypersexuality. And I don't use the term hypersexuality as being necessarily abnormal or wrong. I am easily on the far, far right of hypersexuality. Like, I know this doesn't surprise anybody that's been listening to Sovereign Tech for a while, but I'm just crazy about it. I would, and shit, if I could come all the time, I'd be going all the time. That's, you asked. There's the answer. But multiple times a day, yeah, absolutely. Like that's definitely the way I like to roll. And I'm all for it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything unhealthy about it. I sure as hell don't feel unhealthy. In fact, I feel quite the opposite. I feel very healthy. I mean, it's, yeah, that's how I like to go forward in life. I mean, understand, it's my favorite thing to do. Like, I think we talked about it on the recent Sovereign Tech Prime episode. Like, it is the number one thing. It's like the one thing that I can, or not, it's not the only thing, Okay. But it's the easy thing that I can think of that, what do I like more than video games? Sex, you know? And again, sex isn't just PIV. It's not just penis and vagina. Like sex is a, you know, a broad range of things, and of actions to do and all that. Yeah. That's just me. I know not everybody's that way, and that's fine. Whatever, you know. I'm not shaming the world to think that, oh, you know, you all need to be a bunch of hypersexual freaks. I mean, I will shame the world into thinking, you know, I feel like you should accept that there are people like me and deal with it and not think that that's fucking weird, you know, or anything, and that can be perfectly normal, and just, you know, there's some humans that are that way and there's humans that aren't. But that's my thing. And, you know, do I ever get tired of it? Have I gotten tired of anybody, you know, because of the amount of and frequency of sex? Never, ever, ever. Because, I mean, there's so many different ways to have sex, for one. And for two, when you just love doing it and you just love the moment and you're all about it, why would you get bored with somebody? I mean, novelty is a real thing, and it's okay to want novelty and stuff like that. But there's a million ways to get that, especially when you don't have your relationship or relationships fall into the conventional norms that are considered right and true today. Okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with monogamy. You want that? That's all you have a great time. Okay. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. But if you're outside of that, or if you're bisexual or something like that, I mean, you know, there's a lot of options out there, you know? So no, there's no reason that you need to ever get tired of it, ever. No matter how often you do it, in my opinion. So yeah, and we've talked about another relationship rhombus show where is there an unhealthy side, you know, where there is such a thing as, you know, I don't know, masturbating too much or something like that. We've talked about all that before. I'm not going to retread that ground here. Okay. But yeah, so if you're curious, what my preferred amount is, at least once a day. That's my preferred amount of sex. And I mean every day. So there you go. Okay, let's move on to another question. This is one that I've been sitting on for a while. I want to finally get it out of the queue. So you're going to hear me talk a little bit about wrestling. So, and the question pretty much was, what is the greatest WrestleMania? I kept teasing that I'd mention it pretty much since the last WrestleMania that happened, which is what I think inspired the question. Yeah, so to answer it briefly, the easy answer is, and I think for most people, they would more or less give you the same answer. WrestleMania 3 is widely regarded the greatest WrestleMania of all time. I see no reason to argue with that. Like, WrestleMania 3 was the greatest WrestleMania of all time. I mean, Hogan versus Andre, Ricky Steamboat versus Macho Man. I mean, you had so many amazing matches during WrestleMania 3, and then just the atmosphere at the Silverdome, the whole thing, you know, I mean, and that set what, like an attendance record, for years, for like over a decade. I think it had an attendance record, like 100 some odd thousand people. I don't know, whatever it was, but I mean, that's just amazing. But there was so much incredible, you know, just pageantry and everything. I mean, WrestleMania 3 is when WrestleMania really became what everybody thinks of as WrestleMania. It's when it all went over the top. And it, you know, I'll tell you, if you didn't watch, this just came out a little while ago. There was the Andre the Giant documentary that came out on HBO. I highly recommend watching that, even if you're not a wrestling fan. And there's things that I learned about WrestleMania, or about the match between Hogan and Andre at WrestleMania 3 that I didn't even know. And I thought I had heard all the interviews about it. I thought I knew everything there was to know. Like, pretty much Andre the Giant, spoiler alert, Andre the Giant was literally planning before WrestleMania 3. He felt his career was done. He had all these different problems, knees, back, whatever. And he was just going to go off somewhere to die. Like, he was done. You know, and I'd heard interviews with Vince McMahon and others where they said, yeah, his career was done, but I didn't know he felt his life was done. And come to find out, oh no, he meant his life was done and he was just going to go off and die. And instead he goes on WrestleMania 3 and he ends up, you know, sticking around and wrestling for a few years after. I definitely recommend watching that documentary. It's phenomenal. Stephanie enjoyed the hell out of it too. So, yeah, I got to give it to WrestleMania 3. I mean, because those moments like that, I mean, those are once-in-a-lifetime things that happen. But to give you some unconventional answers outside of WrestleMania 3. I think that WrestleMania 6 was a really big deal, right? When Hogan versus Warrior, that was huge, but that kind of didn't go anywhere. So I don't really consider that to be one of the best WrestleManias ever. Was a WrestleMania 8 where you had Flair versus Macho. That was an amazing match. Each WrestleMania has a really great match in it, at least one really great match. But as far as WrestleManias were all around, everything was just, pulled off without a hitch, and you just had all these amazing matches. There's only a couple other ones that I can think of where I really feel that way, that they were that great. And one of them would be actually WrestleMania 2000, or what would be technically WrestleMania 16. Now, WrestleMania 2000 was great for a few reasons. I think the matches were all really well done, especially the four-way, kind of McMahon family match, where it was Rock versus Triple H versus Show versus Mankind and all that. Like that was a tremendous match. There were amazing, tag team matches going on during it. I mean, everything that was happening at WrestleMania 2000 was just wild. It was wild what was going on. And you just had, moment after moment that was going on. And I think that was in Anaheim. But the really cool thing about WrestleMania 2000 was, because it was WrestleMania 2000 and they're making a big deal out of that number, they did what was called WrestleMania all day long. Now they kind of do this now for like almost every pay-per-view, but not to this degree. WrestleMania 2000 was 12 hours long. I'm not kidding. It was 12 hours long. What you could do is on that Sunday that WrestleMania 2000 was happening, and this is before there was the WWE Network or anything like that. You bought it through cable. If you paid $60 as compared to 40 or whatever it normally was, you got this all day long package where I think it was Michael Cole, very young Michael Cole at the time, announcer, and Victoria, who was one of the top, in fact, she just got into the WWE Hall of Fame this year, one of the top female wrestlers of her day. And they hosted, and they'd have, various guests on throughout the time, and they were having all these interviews. They did like this whole history of WrestleMania, and they were showing off all this different stuff. Like there's a fan event that happens around WrestleMania called Access, AXXESS. They were showing a lot of that. They were just showing all this different stuff. They were doing interviews. They were showing interviews about all these different WrestleMania matches and everything. And one of the amazing things about that was they were talking to Hogan during it. There was lots of great interviews with Vince McMahon. I wish it's almost impossible to get your hands on this. I mean, you can buy a DVD of WrestleMania 2000 or WrestleMania 16, right, of the actual, just the event, but the WrestleMania all day long part, which I think is a priceless part of WrestleMania history, or wrestling history, is very difficult to come by. I had it recorded on VHS, and when I went in the military, I got rid of my VHSs, but sadly, because I really wish I had this. It's so worth watching, especially a lot of the interviews that they did with McMahon and Hogan and others were, just priceless, So this was really cool. This was like the first time that I feel like the WWE, at the time it was still WWF, that the WWE was experimenting with, hey, can we actually hold like an audience's attention for longer than a regular showing or a regular show like Raw or a pay-per-view like WrestleMania or something like that? Like, could we do nonstop content? So I really feel like it was an experiment and the progenitor to what would end up becoming the WWE Network, which is largely a success. Many years later, maybe even like a decade later, right? So WrestleMania 2000 holds a very special place in my heart because I think WrestleMania all day long, that event, that going 12 hours all Sunday, and I remember sitting there watching it all Sunday, that was just amazing. Like, that was so cool, and having friends over and connecting on that and everything. That was really, really special and wild. So I think they did something very unique for WrestleMania 2000. So that stands out for me. And again, that last match was also, I thought that worked really well. And Stephanie McMahon looked, she was in top form. Beyond that, WrestleMania 18, I got to give that top marks as well, because you had the most classic match there, which was Hogan versus The Rock. So you had Hollywood Hogan or Hulk Hogan versus The Rock for the very first time. And that match that's just one of the greatest things to ever get put to film, to ever get recorded, to ever get put on video, bar none. I mean, the excitement, the match, the showmanship, everything that was going on with that was just mind-boggling, and you can't believe that it's happening, and it was there, and it was great. There were a couple goofs, but it was great. Razor Ramon versus Steve Austin, great match. There was just tons of great matches in WrestleMania 18, but Hogan versus The Rock is enough. That is a match like Hogan versus Andre, right? That it was huge. And there have probably been other WrestleManias that were maybe technically more impressive than what was put on display in WrestleMania 18, but the scope of what was done with WrestleMania 18 and what it meant for the WWE in general, because now WCW had been subsumed and ECW had been subsumed and everything into the WWE, that you were able to do a lot of dream matches and a lot of things you never thought you'd see before. So it was a very special moment for wrestling. So yeah, I got to give, WrestleMania 3 takes the cake, but WrestleMania 2000 or 16 and WrestleMania 18, definite runners-ups, for that whole thing, because that was really special. WrestleMania 18 was the Attitude Era at its height. Like it really was. Like that was at the height of what they were able to do with that, and it was amazing. So okay. All right, I think that does it for this week's questions. I did have a question about podcasting. Maybe I'll save that for the Prime show or something, but or we'll save it for next week. But all right, I got to give you an album of the week. What is it without an album of the week? Well, I got a doozy for you here. And the album of the week, this is actually a soundtrack, which I love talking about soundtracks. And it's the soundtrack for the 2017 film with Hugh Jackman, and actually Zac Efron was in that as well. So you probably already know what I'm talking about. That being The Greatest Showman, which is a musical based around the life of P.T. Barnum of the circus fame. Barnum and Bailey, all that, blah, blah. As far as the movie itself, so let's be clear here. I think the movie was amazing. So I am a fan of musicals. I've been a fan of musicals for a very long time. They were some of the original movies that I was really, somehow musicals were okay at points when I was younger of what I could watch on Sabbath. When TV was starting to get allowed a little bit to be watched on the Sabbath by my mother. And I watched Sound of Music, Happiest Millionaire. I love the movie The Happiest Millionaire. That is such a good time. And then, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. There's quite a few other ones that were eventually allowed. Because, I grew up, I was raised ethnically Jewish, and then we became Seventh-day Adventists, so, the Sabbath was still getting celebrated. But anyway, both of those, or all of those movies, that totally got me into musicals growing up. And then it, just built on from there. And I would end up going to a lot of Broadway shows after the fact. And of course, who doesn't love Grease? And personally, I think Grease 2 is better. I love Grease 2. But yeah, you have all of those movies. And I am totally just scratching the surface, of musicals out there. I just kind of mentioned a lot of the popular ones, but love those. Now, Greatest Showman has been, this is probably one of the larger musicals to get released in theaters next to Chicago with Richard Gere, and which Chicago was very interesting and all that. So, hey, look, I dig them, okay? It shouldn't be a shock. I have some Blu-rays up here. They're musicals. I get it. Actually, I ended up getting the Blu-ray of The Greatest Showman because I was just so blown away by this movie. I got a message, so I'll read it here. I was going to read it on a Sovereign Tech Prime Q&A, but I'll read it here quick. And again, this is from Sarah Ha. It said, I don't know if you'll find this flattering or not, but I saw The Greatest Showman, and it made me think of you. Mostly the following your dreams and being yourself ideas. The song A Million Dreams especially makes me think of you. I imagine you and Stephanie singing it, which that's really sweet. And I'm honored by that. Actually, I do find it very flattering, especially after finally watching the movie. So that Sarah Ha was sent to me a while back. And when the person said, I was like, oh, so especially the song A Million Dreams. So I went and listened to the song A Million Dreams. I got the soundtrack. I listened to it. And I particularly listened to that song A Million Dreams, like over and over. And I was like, oh, this is a beautiful song. Yeah, I love the message that it has, And it wasn't really until I finally watched the movie that I was like, okay, let's give the rest of the soundtrack a chance, But I definitely like the song A Million Dreams. And then come to find out, other than... like the soundtrack itself has a couple of reprises where it's like little short minute versions of other songs on it. Other than the song Tightrope on it, it's track for track and it's brilliant stuff. Like, I mean, it's first off, it's a very feel good, very cheesy film, but I don't see that as a bad thing. I see it as a fucking good thing. Because I'm not in the, I'm not in the Misery Olympics, okay? So I can actually, enjoy that kind of film. And, like I said, I absolutely love the film. I love the energy, the intensity, the message throughout it. And this is the thing, the music, all these songs, like I get why that person Sarah Hod that to me a while back. And I don't know who Sarah Hod it to me, but, you obviously kind of know me, or you're getting sort of the point that I put out there, but I love it because every song, or more or less, or most of the songs, are about being yourself, getting away from conventionality, and breaking the mold and everything. There's just beautiful lines in this, like in the song, I think it's The Other Side, where it's Zac Efron and Hugh Jackman singing, where he says, I'm not worried about the cage because I know how to make the key, meaning they know how to break free and everything. I mean, it's this beautiful message of individuality, of letting your freak flag fly, and so many other things. I mean, and there's so much excitement in a lot of the songs, like especially the lead song, The Greatest Show, is just super exciting. I absolutely love that. A Million Dreams, very inspirational song. Come Alive, The Other Side, both very inspirational songs. Saying, stop worrying what everybody else is thinking about and just go do it. Take the risk everything. That's absolutely a message that I espouse on Sovereign Tech all the time. So I thought that was beautiful. Then there was the song Never Enough, which is kind of the main love song of the movie. And I also think that that's just totally heartfelt and beautiful. I listened to that. In fact, I've probably listened to that track the most since I actually watched the movie, just because it's an amazing moment in the film, and it's an amazing. I mean, in the song, just you feel it. It's really powerful. This Is Me is that. This Is Me. That song borders a little too far. I mean, I wouldn't dare say that there's anything as such thing as too cheesy, but that's getting a little too close to the edge for me. But it's still a great song. Rewrite the Stars, beautiful. Another little love song in there, absolutely beautiful. Listen to that many times, very enjoyable. Then Tightrope, and like I said, that song's kind of a weaker one. And then there's From Now On, which is kind of, coming up from the dumps and everything. And that song's good too. But so probably Tightrope and From Now On are two of the lesser songs on the album, but it's actually all great, and it's all very intense, energetic. I mean, and when it's a love song or something like that, I mean, you can definitely feel it. I think this is one of the best soundtracks ever done. I mean, just phenomenal. It was a Benj Pasek and Justin Paul. I don't know if I pronounced the first guy's name right, but they knocked it out of the fucking park. I mean, like, bam. And the music's just amazing. I mean, yeah, cheesy as fuck, but it worked, and it works really well, and you can listen to it all the time. I've had this on repeat for the past week, I think, like just playing it over and over again. And it's been a little while since I've had an album that I've just wanted to listen to kind of over and over again. And it's also, a lot of these are songs that, I talk about. I've mentioned this before. In fact, I think it was when it was Stephanie Ellen and I on a Sovereign Tech Prime episode. We were talking about our morning habits and everything. I talk about how I listen to the Power Song. Some of these have absolutely turned into Power Songs. They're in my Power Song playlist, and just get going. And, I'd be reticent to say this if someone didn't Sarah Hami already, saying that the movie made them think of me. But yeah, like I feel like a lot of that, the mission whatever it is to the reality of how P.T. Barnum lived, that's inconsequential. But what the movie's putting out there, oh yeah, I really feel that kind of that mission, that desire, that drive, that goal to push. And so sure, these become power songs, and I listen to them in the morning. It gets me, jazzed up and ready to go and take on the day and, go see what we can do to make Sovereign Tech, even bigger and better and keep pushing. And oh man, I love it. I think it's a stunning album. And if you haven't seen the movie, I think you could actually enjoy the soundtrack without the movie, but the movie is totally worth listening to. And then the soundtrack will, just takes it to another level. So do both. Watch the movie, listen to the soundtrack. And I would probably watch the movie first. But it's a fantastic message that gets put out there with that. I think movies like this, with this kind of inspiration and aspiration and all that, are too few in the world. They used to be kind of popular, but not anymore. And that's a shame. So I'm glad that this exists. I feel bad I didn't go see it in theaters now. I really wish I saw it in theaters. I forget what I'd heard. I thought I had heard somebody say, oh, well, this, I don't know, washed away this part of P.T. Barnum or something like that. And I don't know. And I said, all right, fine, whatever. I'm just not going to bother seeing it. But I'm again getting to the point where I just don't give a shit about what critics really, I really don't care what critics say. Because there's varying months and whatever throughout the year where my time is less, and so I do go through the filter to through the filters, the popular filters that are provided, to whether or not I'm going to go see something or if I'm just going to wait and watch it later. And sometimes with movies, I'll look, okay, well, what do some of these critics say? Blah, blah, blah. How do they feel about it? And, when certain critics are saying, well, this is kind of inaccurate, blah, blah, yada, 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 yada. All right, fine. I'll skip it. But no, this was awesome. This is a tremendous film and just a tremendous soundtrack. And again, like I said, I don't know what greater praise I could give an album. I've been literally listening to it over and over again on repeat for over a week. I mean, that's crazy town. So there are very few albums that I would do that to. I mean, I can think of them off the top of my head. Whitesnake, Whitesnake, right? The Mortal Kombat, the album. Yeah, I'm not kidding. That's fucking awesome shit. Kiss my ass if you think that that's cheesy or sucks. You're ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, the Dr. Feelgood, I mean, I could think of every Kiss album. I mean, I could think of a bunch where I just listened to them over and over again for weeks. Evanescence, the first Evanescence album, or not the first one that was on a popular label, right? Fallen, that was the name of it, right? Those are ones that I could listen to over and over and over again. Perturbator, listen to those over and over and over again. Every single goddamn album by him. So anyway, yeah, Greatest Showman. Check it out. You're not going to be disappointed. Now, that said, there's your album of the week. I would be remiss if I did not mention that today is May 2nd, 2018, and it has been 3 years. It was May 2nd, 2015, when my very first video game, Hypercronius, was released for PC. And happy anniversary, baby. That game still sells. People still talk about it. And I will get around to releasing the HD version of it. I really will make that happen. And Hypercronius 2, I think I gave an update on that on Sovereign Tech a couple weeks ago, is well in development. Okay. And it has been in development for a while. And I'm very pleased with how it's coming. But yeah, Hypercronius, baby. I raise my glass to that shit. If there's anything worth celebrating in this world, I technically wanted it to come out on May Day, but it didn't end up happening. And so, I gotta be accurate with the dates. But May 2nd, that's it. May 2nd, 2015 was the day that the Hypercronius was unleashed upon the world. And, a game with lots of sex, unconventional love, anarchism, and very little violence. Well, very little lethal violence anyway. Man, I think back on especially like the last month of development for that game. And it's a short game. The game's, barely 2 hours long. Okay. But that was the idea at the time, it was a hot idea to release short games, that that concept seems to have gone the way of the dodo, because now, gaming is just so pervasive. There's so many goddamn games. To say that like there's one trend you should go with as far as gaming is stupid. It's really insulting, because like I remember when I was developing the games, I'd have so many people giving me advice on, people who claim to be game developers and whatever. They're like, oh, you got to do mobile. Now, when they were saying I had to release the game on mobile, they weren't saying that because, well, games sell really well on mobile. No, what they meant was you got to have in-app purchases. You got to have, all this different stuff that like every scammy bullshit that gets put into games today. And really, I mean, DLC isn't so much of a scam. It can be, but in-app purchases and all that kind of shit, like that stuff just gets annoying. And like in-game tokens and everything, those are fucking scams. Those are money-making schemes. Fuck you. You're not making like an actual beautiful game, with a story, with a beginning and end and all that stuff when you're pulling that kind of shit. Fuck it. I get it. I have friends who develop that sort of thing, and I don't mean to insult them, but like, damn you, that's so much crap. And that's why, when I started my company, Zomia Offline Games, I made sure it said offline. There's no DLC, there's no IAP, there's none of that bullshit. There will never, or well, as much as I can, maybe there'd be DLC at some point. I could see that, but I would, even if I if I made DLC for a game of mine, I would call it an expansion pack. Like I would go the old fashioned way, like with StarCraft and Brood War, or go down the list of them. Expansion packs are totally legit, but when you'd buy an expansion pack, you'd end up more or less with an entire new game. It was really a beautiful thing. So as to where DLC is just kind of this penny ante bullshit. So yeah, anyway. I don't listen to the critics or people's opinions about what games should be. I know what I like. I know what I want. I know what I want a game to be. And those are the games that I make. And those are the games that I'm making right now. And it's a reminder every time that this anniversary comes up. And again, this is the third year, when this happens, that, the mission continues of making just sexy anarchist games. And I love doing it. But anyway, so yes, thank you. Some people actually remembered that this is the day the Hypercornius came out, and they sent some congratulatory messages. I'm honored. Thank you very much for that. And all right, we'll wrap up this Q&A for this week. May's going to be nuts. Let's put it that way. I've got a lot of stuff planned for May. So I will see all of you on the other side.